A knock on the door. Sharp, deliberate, a sound that cuts through the silence like a knife. Sam Harper stands in the darkened kitchen, hands rough and calloused from a lifetime of labor. His eyes linger on the cracked table, the remnants of a life half-lived. The house smells of dust and age, but there's something in the air tonight, something heavier. A storm brews, both inside and out. The rain falls in sheets, battering the windows. Sam steps toward the door, his boots echoing on the wooden floorboards. He hesitates. The silence inside his home is always deafening, but tonight, it presses harder. The knock comes again, louder, more insistent. He opens the door, and there she stands. A girl. No more than 16, maybe younger. She's drenched, her clothes clinging to her thin frame. Her face is pale, the kind of pale that tells stories of nights spent in fear, in hiding. Her eyes, though, they're empty, but demanding, like she's seen things no one should ever have to. She says nothing at first. Just stands there, looking at him with those eyes. The air between them thickens. Sam feels a pang of something, guilt, pity, or maybe just discomfort. He can't tell. Need a place to stay? Sam's voice is rough, the words forced. The girl nods, barely. Sam steps aside, the faintest sigh escaping him. He motions for her to enter, but his eyes never leave her. She walks past him, silent as a ghost. The floor creaks under her feet. Her presence fills the room in a way that feels unnatural. Sam shuts the door behind her and watches as she stands in the middle of the kitchen, still soaked to the bone. "You'll catch your death out there," Sam mutters, though he doesn't expect her to answer. She doesn't. She stands there, eyes fixed on the wall, as if something unseen calls to her. Sam shifts uncomfortably, running a hand over his graying beard. His thoughts spin. She reminds him of something, someone, but he can't place it. "Name?" he asks, though he doesn't need to. "Lydia," she says, her voice barely a whisper. Sam nods, but there's no warmth in the gesture. He glances at the window. The storm isn't letting up. "Get a seat by the fire," Sam says. "Dry off. I'll get you something to eat." Lydia doesn't respond, but she walks slowly toward the hearth, her movements fluid and strange. Sam watches her for a moment, then turns to the stove, setting water to boil. The sound of the fire crackling fills the room, but it doesn't ease the weight in the air. Something about this feels wrong. Sam glances at Lydia. She's still staring at the fire, but now, her hands are trembling. It's slight, but he notices. She doesn't try to hide it. After a long silence, Sam speaks again. "You come from the town?" She doesn't answer right away. "I don't come from anywhere," she says, finally. Sam looks up, his eyes narrowing. The words sound strange, almost rehearsed. He turns back to the stove, but his hands feel suddenly unsteady. He forces them to work. The kettle starts to whistle. He pours the hot water into a mug, sets it on the table. She doesn't move. Sam watches her a moment longer, a tightening in his chest. There's something about her, something he can't shake. He's seen that kind of look before. He's felt it too. Grief. He shakes his head. "I'll get you some dry clothes," he mutters, heading toward the back of the house. Lydia doesn't acknowledge him. She simply stays by the fire, staring. The old, creaking house feels emptier than ever. When Sam returns with a blanket and spare clothes, he finds her in the same spot. But now, she's turned her gaze toward him. It's too intense, too knowing. Her voice is a quiet rasp. "You didn't have to let me in." Sam freezes, the clothes still in his hands. He doesn't say anything for a long moment. "Didn't feel right to leave you out there," he finally says. His tone is defensive, though he doesn't know why. Lydia doesn't answer. She looks away again, staring into the fire. Sam stands there for a moment, feeling the weight of her silence. He sets the clothes down on the table. "You don't talk much, do you?" he says, trying to fill the space with something, anything. "I don't need to," Lydia replies. Her voice is low but clear, almost cold. You already know what you need to know. A shiver runs through Sam. The fire crackles, its glow casting long shadows in the room. He suddenly feels the full weight of her presence, as if the walls are closing in on him. I don't know you, Sam says, his voice hardening. You come here, out of nowhere. I don't know why you're here, or what you want. Lydia's eyes meet his for a moment, and there's something in them that makes his skin crawl. Something dark, something familiar. You've been waiting for me, she says quietly. Haven't you, Sam? Sam's breath catches. Her words cut through him like a knife, and for a moment, he can't speak. His heart races in his chest. He knows she's right, but he can't understand how she knows it. He turns away, but Lydia's voice stops him. I'll be here until you face it. Sam doesn't turn back. His grip tightens on the doorframe. He knows exactly what she means. The storm rages outside. The walls seem to close in even tighter. And Sam Harper, the man who's tried so damn hard to leave his past behind, feels it chasing him again. The days stretch on, thick with silence. Sam moves through his routine, feeding the animals, checking the fences, mending what's broken. The same tasks, the same motions, but everything feels off now. The air's heavier than it was before Lydia came. He can feel it in his bones, in the dirt under his boots. Lydia doesn't speak much. She stays to herself mostly, sitting by the fire, staring at it for hours on end. Sometimes, Sam catches her watching him from the corners of his eyes. She doesn't look at him like a person, more like an object, something she's studying. A thing to figure out. She never eats much either. A few bites, here and there, but nothing like a girl her age should. Her eyes are hollow, dark, like she hasn't slept in years. And that's the thing that unnerves Sam the most, the way she never seems to need sleep. He'll wake up in the middle of the night, the moonlight creeping through the windows, and she's sitting there by the fire, staring into the flames, as if she's waiting for something. He can't ask her about it. She won't answer. The house, which had already felt empty, now feels haunted. Every creak of the floorboards is louder. Every gust of wind outside seems to shake the walls. The place feels too small for the both of them, the air too thick to breathe. One afternoon, Sam decides to push through it. He tries to engage her, make her feel like a person, like someone he can talk to. But it doesn't work. Lydia, he says, standing in the doorway of the living room. She's sitting near the fire again, her back straight, her face as still as a statue. You need to start talking. I can't keep living like this, with you just sitting around, staring. She doesn't respond. He takes a step closer. You got family? She tilts her head slightly, like she's considering the question. Her voice is soft, barely there when she answers. Not anymore. Sam feels a chill run down his spine. The words hang in the air, heavy with something he doesn't want to name. Where you come from, he presses. What happened to your people? She looks at him for the first time in days, and when their eyes meet, there's something in her gaze that stops him cold. It's not just sadness, it's something darker, something old. I don't know, Lydia says. Her words are flat, matter-of-fact, but there's an edge to them. You're better off not knowing. Sam's hands tighten at his sides. Something in her tone strikes a nerve. The past, the things he's tried so hard to forget, it's all surfacing again. He can feel it, clawing at him. I didn't ask for this, Sam mutters. I didn't ask for you to show up at my door. Lydia stands, slow and deliberate, and walks past him toward the window. She doesn't even look at him as she speaks. It was never your choice, Sam. It never was. The words cut through him, sharp and painful. He feels like she's speaking to him from some place beyond the present, from a time he can't reach, can't escape. He doesn't know how she knows what she knows, but he knows it's not just coincidence. He wants to yell, to tell her to leave, to stop haunting him, but the words get stuck in his throat. The air feels thick, suffocating. I'm not going anywhere, she says, almost to herself. Sam takes a breath, trying to steady himself. I didn't mean for you to get hurt. I never meant any of this. Lydia turns her head, just enough for him to catch the glint of something in her eyes. Something far too old for a girl her age. It was never meant to be, Sam. You know that. The words hit him like a punch to the gut. His breath catches. He remembers something a long time ago, a feeling he buried so deep he thought it was gone for good. The violence. The blood. The people he hurt. He doesn't know what to say. The weight of it presses on him like a stone. You don't know what you've done, Lydia whispers, and the sound is almost like a prayer. Sam's heart races. He can feel the memories coming back in flashes, brief but intense. His wife's face, her last words. The screams of the people he left behind. He thought he could outrun it, thought he could bury it, but now, it's standing right in front of him. He wants to scream at her, demand that she leave. But he can't. It's as if her very presence is pulling him into something he can't escape. Lydia steps closer, her movements slow, deliberate. You left them to die, she says, her voice cold, like it's a fact. You abandoned them, Sam. He flinches at the words, but they land. He knows she's right. He's spent years trying to outrun that truth. But Lydia, she doesn't stop. You left my family behind, she says. And now you'll pay. The words hang in the air, echoing in the silence between them. Sam can feel his breath tightening in his chest, his vision blurring. His body wants to react, to fight, but something inside of him knows he's powerless. I don't owe you anything, he says, his voice shaking. I never asked for this. Lydia doesn't flinch. She just looks at him, the way a predator looks at its prey. You owe me everything, she replies softly. The weight of her words presses in, suffocating. Sam feels trapped, the walls closing in on him. The house, the land, it all feels like a cage now. And the girl standing before him, this stranger who knows too much, she's the key to it all. But Sam doesn't want to face it. He doesn't want to remember the blood on his hands, the lives he ruined. But Lydia isn't letting him forget. I'm not the one who came here looking for answers, Sam says, trying to find some ground beneath him. You're right, Lydia says, her tone shifting just slightly. You weren't looking for answers. But they were always there, Sam. Right in front of you. He doesn't know how to respond. The room feels smaller now, suffocating. Sam's chest tightens. He feels the pull of his past, the ghosts of the people he betrayed, dragging him down. He wants to run, but there's nowhere to go. Lydia walks to the door, pausing for just a moment before she turns back to him. I'm here to make sure you remember, she says quietly. The door creaks open, and she steps out into the storm, leaving Sam standing alone in the silence. The rain pours down harder now, but Sam doesn't move. The weight of it all settles on him, deeper than ever. And somewhere, far off, he can almost hear the whispers of the past calling his name. The next morning, Clara was different. She was more composed, more distant, as though nothing had happened at all. The twins, however, weren't fooled. The air in the house felt thick, heavier than it had ever been, and every glance they exchanged made the silence feel more suffocating. It was the quiet before the storm, and they could feel it in their bones. Lily and Ruth sat at the table, barely touching their food, eyes darting to the door, to the hallway beyond. Clara moved about the kitchen, her movements swift, deliberate. She didn't look at them, didn't acknowledge them, and yet her presence loomed in every corner of the room. It was Ruth who finally broke the silence. You're lying. Clara didn't even flinch. What's that, dear? I said, you're lying, Ruth repeated, her voice louder now, more forceful. We heard you last night. We know what you're planning. Clara set down the dish she was holding and slowly turned around, her face unreadable. For a moment, Ruth thought she saw something flicker in Clara's eyes, something dangerous, but it was gone before she could be sure. I told you before, Clara said, her voice cold as ice. You're mistaken. There's nothing going on. Ruth stood up, her chair scraping harshly against the floor. No. We're not stupid. You don't get to keep lying to us. Lily was quiet, watching. She could feel the tension rising in Ruth's posture, the sharpness in her words. But something in her, some instinct, maybe told her that pushing too hard right now might break something they couldn't fix. "I think you need to calm down, Ruth," Lily said, her voice a whisper of warning. But Ruth didn't listen. She was done being calm, done being afraid. She was angry now, angry for everything they had lost, everything Clara had taken from them. "Calm down?" Ruth's voice cracked with frustration. "You want me to calm down? You want us to just sit here and let her sell us?" Clara's face didn't show the fear Ruth was hoping to provoke. Instead, it hardened, like stone. "You're not going anywhere," Clara said, and this time, there was no warmth in her voice. Lily felt the weight of those words sinking deep into her chest. It was the final confirmation. There was no going back. Clara's hold on them was real. It wasn't just an idea or a threat anymore, it was their reality. Ruth took a step forward, her fists clenched at her sides. "I don't care what you say. We'll find a way out. We're not staying here for you two." "Enough," Clara snapped, her eyes narrowing. "You don't know what you're dealing with." The words hit hard, like a slap. Ruth hesitated, just for a moment, the challenge in Clara's voice making her falter. But then Lily stood up, a quiet force beside her twin. She was no longer just the passive one, the one who always held back. "We're done being afraid," Lily said, her voice low, but firm. "If you think we're going to just let you do this, you're wrong." Clara's face darkened, and for the first time, the twins saw a crack in her icy composure. "You think you can stop me?" Lily didn't flinch. "I think we can." Clara's expression shifted, just slightly, to one of disbelief. Then, she seemed to compose herself again. "Fine," Clara said, her voice hard now. "You think you have power? Fine. But you'll see just how little you really have when this is all over." Ruth opened her mouth to respond, but Lily's hand on her arm stopped her. "We'll see," Lily said softly, her eyes fixed on Clara. She didn't feel the fear that had gripped her last night. The fear that had kept her frozen. It was gone, replaced by something else. Something cold, something certain. Clara didn't say anything more. She turned back to the kitchen, picking up the dishes again, as though the conversation had never happened. She wasn't going to give them any more than she had to. But the silence that followed was different. It wasn't calm anymore. It was a challenge. Ruth watched her, fist still clenched, but the anger was starting to burn out, replaced by a growing realization. They weren't going to win this with words. They were going to have to do something. "We need to figure out what she's really planning," Ruth said, finally breaking the silence. Lily nodded. "But we can't just go at her head on. Not yet. We have to be smarter than that." The tension hung in the air for a long time after that, thick and heavy. Clara's presence in the room felt suffocating. But the twins knew something now that they hadn't known before: they weren't powerless. Not anymore. They didn't know how they were going to fight, or what they were going to do, but they knew this much: they couldn't keep living in this house, under Clara's thumb. The world they had known was collapsing, and they had to find a way to survive it. Clara's game was only beginning. But so was theirs. And for the first time in a long while, the twins had hope. The storm outside has become nothing more than a low hum, but inside Sam's house, the air feels thick with a different kind of pressure. Lydia's been quiet the past few days, too quiet. Sam doesn't know if it's a blessing or a curse. She stays mostly in the room by the fire, or out in the yard, her back always to him. Never facing him. Always waiting. Watching. He's tried to ignore her, focus on the work, but it doesn't work. She's there, like a shadow that refuses to leave. He's been putting it off, but he knows it's time. He can't keep pretending. He has to talk to her. He finds her in the yard, standing at the edge of the field, staring out at the distant tree line. The sun setting, casting long shadows across the land, but Lydia doesn't move. She's still as a statue. "Lydia," Sam calls, his voice gruff. She doesn't turn. "I need to know what happened." What you're after. You've been here long enough, and you owe me that much. Her shoulders stiffen, but she doesn't answer. Sam steps closer, his boots crunching on the dry grass. He's been here before, on this land. But it feels different now, like everything's shifting. I'm not the man I was, he says, trying to keep his voice steady. Whatever you think you know, whatever you think I didn't mean for any of it to happen. Lydia finally turns, her face unreadable. Her eyes, those eyes, stare right through him. They're not the eyes of a scared girl. They're the eyes of someone who's seen things Sam can't even imagine. Everyone means well, she says, her voice cold and distant, until they don't. Sam feels the weight of her words settle on him, heavier than any burden he's ever carried. What's that supposed to mean? Lydia doesn't answer right away. She looks back out at the trees, as if searching for something in the distance. They told stories, she says, almost to herself. When I was young. About the land. About the people who live here. They said the past never really goes away. It stays buried, like a dead thing in the ground, waiting to come back. Sam swallows hard. He knows exactly what she's talking about. The stories his mother used to tell him, the old feuds, the blood spilled on this very land. It's all part of the past, but it's not something he ever thought about. Not until now. You're talking about the feud, Sam says quietly, the words tasting bitter in his mouth. Lydia's eyes snap to his, and for a moment, there's something in them, something so fierce it makes him take a step back. It wasn't just a feud, Sam, she says, her voice tight. It was a war. A war you started. A war that never ended. Sam's heart skips a beat. Her words cut through him like a knife, but he doesn't flinch. He's heard these things before, but hearing them from her, he can't escape them. It wasn't me, he says, almost pleading, but the words feel hollow. I didn't start it. I was just a part of it? Lydia interrupts, her tone sharp, almost mocking. Sam clenches his fists at his sides. I didn't have a choice. You don't know what it was like. You don't know what I had to do. I know more than you think, Lydia says, stepping closer. I know what it costs to keep the peace. I know what it costs to live with yourself after you've taken everything from someone else. Sam feels his throat tighten, the air thinning around him. The memories are flooding back now, things he's spent years trying to bury. The violence. The betrayal. The people he hurt. He doesn't know what he was expecting when he let Lydia in, but this wasn't it. She doesn't give him a chance to respond. You think I'm just some orphan looking for a place to stay, she says, her voice rising. But I'm not. I'm here to make you pay for what you did. Sam's blood runs cold. What are you talking about? Lydia's eyes narrow. I'm the last one left. The last of the ones you destroyed. And I'll make sure you never forget it. Sam feels the ground shift under him. He takes a step back, but his feet feel heavy, like they're stuck in the dirt. Lydia is standing too close now, and her presence feels suffocating. I didn't kill anyone, Sam says, his voice trembling. I didn't want any of this to happen. You have to understand that. I didn't. Lydia cuts him off. You think I care about your excuses? You think you can just tell me you didn't mean it and expect it all to go away? No, Sam. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that for people like you. Her words hit him like a slap. Sam's chest tightens, and he can't breathe. He knows what she's saying. He knows it's true. But that doesn't make it any easier to hear. For a moment, neither of them speaks. The wind picks up, swirling around them, but neither of them moves. Finally, Lydia breaks the silence. I'm not here to be saved, Sam. She says it slowly, each word weighted. I'm here to make sure you pay. Sam looks at her, his heart pounding. The storm inside him is rising. He's never been more afraid of anything in his life. You don't have to do this, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. You can leave. You don't have to carry this weight. Lydia shakes her head slowly, her eyes hard as steel. You don't get to tell me what I have to do. You don't get to decide that anymore. Sam opens his mouth to say something, but the words don't come. He feels the weight of her gaze, the pressure building inside him until it feels like he's going to crack. I didn't want this, he says again, more to himself than to her. I never wanted this. Lydia steps back, crossing her arms over her chest. Doesn't matter. It's too late for that now. The wind howls through the trees, and for the first time since Lydia arrived, Sam feels truly alone. He looks at her, this girl who knows everything he's ever tried to forget, and he knows there's no escaping it. You're here for revenge, he says, the words heavy in the air. Lydia doesn't respond. She doesn't need to. The look in her eyes tells him everything he needs to know. Sam turns away, his heart sinking into his stomach. He knows, deep down, there's no running from this. The past, the violence, the things he's done, they're all coming back. And Lydia? She's the one who's come to make sure he never forgets it. The storm rages in his chest, and he knows, with a certainty that cuts through him, that there's no peace left to be found. The attic smelled like dust and old memories. The air was thick with it, like it had been waiting for them, waiting for someone to stir up the ghosts of the past. Ruth had climbed the creaky steps first, her footfalls heavy, the floorboards groaning under her weight. Lily followed, hesitating at the top, looking at the dark space ahead. It was a part of the house they'd never really paid attention to, a place filled with things they were never meant to see. Are you sure about this? Lily asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Ruth didn't answer right away. She was already pulling at the old trunks lined up against the far wall. There were no windows up here, just a few shafts of moonlight creeping through the slats of the roof. The shadows stretched like they had a life of their own, but Ruth didn't seem to care. She was looking for something. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I know it's here, Ruth muttered under her breath. Lily stayed close, her heart pounding in her chest. The weight of the house seemed to bear down on them here, the walls pressing in, the silence pressing harder. They were in the place where old things went to die, forgotten by the world. But not forgotten by Clara. Ruth stopped in front of an old wooden chest. The lock was rusted, but it didn't take much for Ruth to break it open. Inside, there was nothing but paper. Yellowed letters, old receipts, folded documents with smudged ink. Ruth dug through it quickly, pulling out a letter that was addressed to their mother. Lily stepped closer, watching as Ruth unfolded it. It's from Clara, Ruth said, her voice tight. It's from before she even met us. Lily leaned in, reading over her sister's shoulder. The letter was full of words they couldn't understand, references to old debts, old promises, and threats veiled in polite language. But what hit them both hardest was the date. It was from years before their mother died. Years before Clara ever came into their lives. It's all tied up in this, Lily, Ruth said, her fingers trembling as she held the letter. She's been planning this for so long. We were just the last piece. Lily felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The letter was clear now. Clara wasn't just a stepmother. She was part of something bigger. A family. A bloodline. A name that carried weight and secrets. Ruth continued to sift through the chest, throwing old papers aside like they were nothing. Her eyes narrowed when she pulled out another envelope, this one thicker than the rest. This one's different, Ruth said, her voice low. She ripped it open. Inside was a series of legal papers, contracts, and handwritten notes. At the top of the first page was the name of Clara's family. The name was written in bold ink, like it meant something. Like it still meant something. This doesn't make sense, Lily said, her voice shaking. Our family's name, our last name, it's not the same as hers. Ruth nodded slowly, the pieces falling into place. No. It's not. But look here. She pointed to one of the papers, where Clara's name was signed, not as their stepmother, but as something else, something older. She's part of the land, Ruth whispered, as if the words themselves could bring the house down. She's been part of this place, this family, for generations. Our mother was just another pawn. Lily's mind spun. The house, the land, the old stories their mother used to tell them, all of it was suddenly clearer. Clara's hold on them was not just personal. It was ancestral. It was a legacy of control, of power. And the twins had never even known it. Ruth's eyes darkened, her lips tight with anger. This wasn't about replacing our mother. This was about taking us. Taking what's ours. The house creaked, the floorboards groaning under their weight. Ruth folded the letter and tucked it into her pocket. The truth was out now, and with it, the weight of their new reality. "I can't believe it," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. All these years, she was waiting for the right moment. "She's not just waiting anymore," Ruth said, turning toward the door. "She's planning to finish it. And we're part of that plan. But we don't have to let her." Lily stood frozen for a moment, her mind still reeling from the discovery. But Ruth was already moving toward the stairs, pulling her along. As they descended the narrow staircase, Lily felt the weight of everything they had just uncovered settle into her bones. The house felt different now. The walls felt alive, watching. They weren't safe anymore. They never had been. The world outside the attic was the same as it had always been. But now they knew the truth. Clara wasn't just their stepmother. She was their enemy. And the house wasn't just a home, it was a battlefield. Ruth paused at the bottom of the stairs, looking back at Lily. "We have to do something now. We have to make sure Clara never gets what she wants." Lily nodded, her mind finally catching up to the gravity of it all. The game had changed. And now, they were ready to play. But the price of victory was higher than they ever imagined. And it was clear, this was no longer just about surviving. It was about breaking the chains that had bound them to this place, to this legacy. They had been marked by the past. But they were no longer willing to let it define them. Sam couldn't shake the feeling that Lydia was always a step ahead. Every time he tried to focus on the present, his eyes would drift to her, always sitting, always waiting, and it was as though she already knew what he was thinking. She moved through the house like she owned it. And maybe, in some twisted way, she did. It had been a week since Lydia arrived. A week since she dropped into his life like a stone in a still pond, sending ripples across everything Sam thought he had buried. He couldn't ignore the pull of her presence anymore. It was as if she was haunting him, and she knew things that tied back to a past he thought he had left behind. Sam had started asking questions around town. He couldn't help himself. He had to know who she really was. Who she really belonged to. The story he had in his head, of a lost girl, orphaned by tragedy, didn't sit right. It felt too neat, too easy. The first conversation was with the local blacksmith, a man whose name Sam could barely remember but whose face was carved into his memory. He and Sam had shared a past, one that involved far too many broken bones and bled-out debts, but it was the blacksmith's words that made Sam pause. "You know the girl, then?" the blacksmith asked, rubbing a piece of iron with a rag. Sam could barely see his face, just the light flickering from the forge. "What do you know about her?" Sam asked, trying to sound casual, but there was an edge in his voice that wasn't there before. The blacksmith wiped his hands and leaned in, whispering like it was some kind of secret. "She's not from around here, Sam. That much is clear. But the last name, that's what gets me. You know the name." Sam's heart skipped a beat. "What name?" The blacksmith paused. His eyes flickered. "Haven't you heard the stories? The old stories. About the land and the blood and the bad folks who lived here before. She's part of it. Her family's tied up in it somehow." Sam took a step back, his pulse quickening. He felt a cold sweat creeping down his back. "You're talking about the Warren family," Sam said, his voice strained, barely a whisper. The blacksmith didn't confirm it. He didn't need to. He simply nodded and turned back to his work. Sam stood there, frozen. The Warren family. It was a name he had heard whispered in dark corners of the bar and in the creaking corners of his memories. The Warrens were not just a family, they were a force, a shadow that hung over the land like a curse. Sam had known their patriarch, a man named Henry Warren, once a friend, once a business partner. But things went south quickly, and blood had been spilled, his blood, their blood, no matter. What Sam never knew was that the blood hadn't stopped. It had only laid dormant, waiting. Lydia. Sam could feel the weight of the name pulling at him. He left the blacksmith's shop without another word, his head spinning. Back at the house, Lydia was sitting at the kitchen table, her eyes fixed on the window, watching the rain fall. Her hair was damp, her clothes still dark from the storm. She didn't look up as Sam walked in, but he could feel her presence like a weight in the room. "You're part of them, aren't you?" Sam asked, his voice low, like he was speaking to a ghost. Lydia didn't answer. She didn't need to. Sam's heart thudded in his chest as he stared at her. The pieces were falling into place now, one by one, and the realization hit him like a freight train. She was no mere orphan. She was the last of the Warren bloodline. The girl who would finish what had started long before she was born. Lydia finally lifted her gaze to him, but her eyes were blank, cold. Her lips didn't move, but somehow, her voice still cut through the air like a blade. "I'm here because it's time to settle the score." Sam's hands shook. He couldn't speak. He didn't know what to say to that. He had done so much to run from the past, to escape the consequences of what he had done, but now it was standing in front of him, waiting for him to face it. "You don't know what you're talking about," Sam said, his voice thick with a bitterness he couldn't hide. "Oh, I do," Lydia replied, her voice calm, almost too calm. "I know exactly what you did. And I know what you left behind. But more than that, I know what you owe." Sam didn't know whether to shout, to cry, or to walk away from it all. The walls of the house seemed to close in on him, suffocating him. He had thought that the past was something he could bury, something that would stay dead and buried. But Lydia, with her quiet presence and her haunting words, had dug it up, piece by piece, until there was no place left to hide. Her gaze didn't leave his. "You killed them, Sam," she whispered. "You killed my family. All of them. You destroyed them. And I'm the last one left. The last one to remember." The air in the room was thick with something heavy, something that felt like smoke, burning from the inside out. Sam couldn't breathe. "I didn't mean to. I didn't know what I was doing," Sam stammered, but his words felt weak, like they had no weight to them. Lydia stood up, the floorboards creaking under her feet. She walked toward him, slow and deliberate, like a predator closing in on its prey. "Does it matter?" she asked. "Does it matter that you didn't mean to?" Her eyes were no longer empty. They were full of something Sam couldn't quite understand. Anger, yes, but something else too. Something older. Something passed down through the bloodline. "You don't get to decide that," she said, her voice low but firm. "You don't get to decide how it ends." Sam felt the weight of her words crash into him, deeper than anything he had felt in years. The storm outside seemed to grow louder, the wind howling against the house like a warning. I never wanted this," Sam said, his voice breaking, his hands trembling. Lydia's eyes softened, just for a moment, and then she looked away. "I know," she said. "But you still have to pay." Sam's heart sank, the world tilting beneath him. He could feel the past closing in on him, the blood, the violence, the pain. All of it, he could feel it all. The choices he had made. The people he had hurt. It was all here now, in this room, with Lydia standing in front of him. "I never wanted to destroy anything," Sam whispered, almost pleading with her. Lydia's face was unreadable now. "That doesn't matter. What matters is what's left." And Sam knew, deep down, that it wasn't just Lydia who needed to settle the score. He needed to as well. But he didn't know if he was strong enough to face it. To finally reckon with what he had done. He looked at Lydia one last time, and for the first time, he saw the pain in her eyes. The weight of everything she had lost. The burden of a past that never let go. And Sam realized, too late, that he was a part of that burden. She didn't say another word. She turned and walked out of the room, leaving Sam alone in the silence of his own making. The night was suffocating. The air outside was thick with the kind of heat that clung to the skin, but it wasn't just the weather that had made Sam's skin crawl. It was Lydia, always Lydia, with her silent presence and her quiet words that burrowed into his mind like worms in the dirt. Her eyes never left him, even when she wasn't speaking. They were always watching, always waiting. Sam could feel it more acutely than ever now. The house felt smaller with her in it, as if the very walls were closing in on him. The silence between them was a thick, tangible thing. Sam was used to the quiet, he had learned to live with it after losing his family, after the things he had done. But now, with Lydia here, it was different. It wasn't just silence. It was judgment. And it pressed on him every damn moment of the day. He tried to push it all away, the guilt, the memories, but every time he closed his eyes, it came rushing back. The people he had left behind. The things he had done. And now, Lydia had arrived to make him pay for it. She had come to drag him back to a past he had tried to bury, one he could never escape. Sam was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the untouched cup of coffee in front of him, his hands clenched into fists. The clock on the wall ticked on relentlessly, and each tick felt like a nail being hammered into his coffin. The sound of Lydia's footsteps echoed down the hallway, and he didn't need to look up to know she was standing in the doorway. "I can't keep doing this," Sam said, his voice rough and low. He didn't look at her, didn't need to. "I've lived with it long enough. I'd buried it all as deep as I could." Lydia stood there in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Her eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, were locked on him, as if she could see right through him. "You've buried it, Sam. But it's still there, festering. You think you're the only one who's had to live with what happened? You think your regret matters?" Sam's hands trembled as he stood up, pushing the chair back with a sharp scrape. His heart was pounding in his chest, but his body felt like it was locked in place, stuck in the weight of his own damn mistakes. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," he muttered, his voice breaking. "I never did. But it was never just about me. You don't know what it was like, what they did to me. What they made me do." Lydia's eyes narrowed. "Don't tell me your story, Sam. Don't tell me how hard it was for you. Because I've heard it all before. You did what you did because you were too damn scared to face it. Because you're a coward." The words hit him harder than anything he had heard in years. Sam's breath caught in his throat, his chest tightening as if someone had wrapped a rope around him. His fists clenched tighter, nails digging into his palms. "You think I don't know that?" he spat, his voice rising. "You think I didn't see the damage? You think I didn't carry the weight of it every damn day of my life? But what do you want from me, Lydia? Huh? You want me to beg? You want me to grovel?" Lydia stepped forward, her face inches from his now. The air between them crackled with tension, the kind that had built over weeks of silence, of waiting. Her breath was even, steady. She wasn't afraid of him. She was waiting. "Yeah," she said softly, her voice cutting through him like a knife. "That's exactly what I want." Sam's eyes flickered to the door, to the window, to the few meager possessions in the room. He felt trapped, like there was no way out, no escape from the storm that had come to his doorstep. He had tried to forget, tried to move on, but there was no outrunning it now. There was no pretending anymore. "I'm sorry," Sam said, his voice barely a whisper. The words tasted like ashes. "I never meant for any of it to happen. But it did, and I can't change it. I know I can't. I can't take back what I've done." Lydia's face remained cold, unmoving. "Sorry doesn't fix it. Sorry doesn't bring them back. Sorry doesn't undo the blood you've spilled." Her words echoed through him, gnawing at him like a dog with a bone. He had lived with the pain of his choices, but hearing it from her, the last one left, the one who had the right to make him suffer, it tore him apart. He had spent years running from it, lying to himself about what had happened, but Lydia had dragged it all back into the light. There was no escaping it now. "You think you're the only one who's had to live with it? Lydia asked, her voice quiet but fierce. You think it was just your hell to carry? You think your guilt matters more than mine? Sam didn't respond. He couldn't. There was nothing left to say. Lydia stepped back, her eyes never leaving him. You can't fix it, Sam. You can't undo it. You can only make sure you never forget what you've done. And I'm here to make sure you don't. I'm here to make you pay. The words hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and thick. Sam's pulse raced, and for a moment, he couldn't breathe. It was like the walls were pressing in on him, closing him off from the world outside. Please, Sam's voice cracked. His hands shook uncontrollably, and he had to swallow hard to keep from breaking down completely. What do you want from me? What can I do? Lydia took another step back, her eyes narrowing. Nothing. You can't do anything. It's not about doing anymore. It's about remembering. About facing what you've done. About carrying the weight of it until you die. Sam shook his head, the weight of it all pushing him to his knees. He wasn't sure if it was the memories, or if it was Lydia's presence in the room, or if it was just the suffocating weight of everything crashing down on him at once, but the walls felt like they were closing in on him, and he couldn't escape. Please, he whispered, his voice broken. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I didn't want to be like this. But I was trapped. I had no choice. Lydia's face softened, just for a moment. It wasn't compassion, but something different, something darker. She leaned down, looking Sam dead in the eyes. You always had a choice, Sam, she said, her voice quieter now, but still carrying the weight of truth. You just didn't want to make it. And then, before Sam could say anything else, she turned and walked out of the room, leaving him there, broken and alone, with only the weight of his past to keep him company. The silence came again, but it was different now. It wasn't empty. It was full. Full of ghosts. Full of regret. Full of things that Sam would never be able to outrun. Sam had thought he was done. That he had buried it all, locked it away, and thrown away the key. But Lydia's presence, her quiet, relentless pursuit of justice, had peeled away every layer he had carefully constructed around himself. Now, all that remained was the raw, exposed truth. And it was suffocating him. The days passed, each one blending into the next. The air felt thick with something unspoken, something he couldn't shake. Lydia was quieter now, almost too quiet. She spent her time in the corners of the house, staring out the window, her face an unreadable mask. Sam had never been more aware of the silence between them. But something had changed. Sam had changed. He couldn't run anymore. Lydia had made that clear. Her words, her cold, unflinching gaze, they had cracked something open inside of him. He had tried to hide from his past, but now it was staring him in the face, daring him to confront it. He couldn't sleep. The weight of what he had done pressed on him every night, every moment of every day. He saw the faces of the people he had destroyed, families torn apart, lives ruined. All of it, it felt like a shackle around his neck, tightening with every breath he took. And Lydia? She was the reminder that he could never escape. Sam had always thought redemption was a distant dream, something that belonged to other men who hadn't crossed the line he had. But now, with Lydia in his life, with the truth hanging over him like a storm cloud, he knew he had to try. He had to do something. He couldn't undo the damage he had caused, but maybe, just maybe, he could start to make it right. That night, Sam stood by the window, looking out at the land he had once called his own. The moonlight bathed the fields in silver, casting long shadows that stretched into the distance. It all seemed so still, so peaceful, but Sam knew better. Beneath the surface, the land was soaked with blood. His blood. Lydia had been right. He had made his choices. And now he had to live with them. The sound of footsteps behind him made him tense, but he didn't turn. He knew who it was. Lydia stood in the doorway, her eyes fixed on him, her expression unreadable. She had been like that for days, silent, distant, watching him with those piercing eyes. Sam couldn't escape the weight of her gaze. "I'm sorry," Sam said, his voice tight. The words felt foreign on his tongue, but he forced them out anyway. I can't change what I've done. I can't bring them back. I know that. But I want to try. I want to make it right. Lydia didn't respond immediately. She just stood there, looking at him with that same, unsettling calm. You think saying sorry makes it go away? Her voice was low, almost gentle, but there was an edge to it. A sharpness. You think you can just say it and everything will be fine? Sam's heart sank. No. No, I don't think that. But it's a start. I know I can't erase the past, but maybe I can do something that matters. Something that means I'm not just a man who hurt people and ran away. Lydia's gaze softened, just a fraction, but she didn't step closer. You think that makes it better? You think that's enough? Sam turned to face her, his hands trembling at his sides. He felt a surge of frustration, of desperation. What else do you want from me, Lydia? You want me to beg? To crawl on my knees? I can't do that. I've already done enough of that to myself. For a long moment, Lydia said nothing. She just stared at him, her eyes boring into him. Sam could feel the weight of her judgment, the weight of the past he had tried to forget. You don't get to decide when it's enough, Lydia finally said, her voice cold again. You don't get to decide when you've paid your price. I'll decide that. Sam swallowed hard. Her words hit him like a punch. He had been fooling himself, thinking he could fix it all, thinking he could control the situation. But Lydia wasn't asking for control. She was asking for something else. I don't expect you to forgive me, Sam said quietly. His voice was thick with emotion. I know you can't. And I wouldn't blame you if you never did. But I can't keep living like this. I can't keep pretending that I didn't destroy everything I loved. Lydia's gaze softened again, just a touch. You think redemption is about forgiveness, she asked, her voice almost thoughtful. You think it's about being forgiven? Sam blinked, confused. Isn't it? Lydia shook her head, her lips curling into a faint, bitter smile. No, Sam. It's about you paying. About you remembering. About you never forgetting what you've done. Sam took a step forward, his heart pounding. Then tell me what I need to do. Tell me how I can make this right. Lydia's eyes narrowed, as if she were deciding something in her mind. You can't fix it, Sam. Not with gestures. Not with words. But you can carry it. You can live with it. You can carry it with you for the rest of your life, and maybe, just maybe, that's the price you have to pay. The weight of her words hit him like a wall. Sam stood there for a moment, staring at her, unable to speak. He had always thought he could outrun the past, but Lydia was showing him the truth. The past wasn't something that could be outrun. It was a weight. A burden. And it was something he would carry for the rest of his days. You want me to live with it, Sam murmured. That's what you want from me? Lydia nodded slowly. I want you to remember. To never forget. To know what you've done, and to make sure you live with it every single day. The silence between them stretched, heavy and thick, like the air in a storm before it breaks. Sam felt the weight of it, felt the truth of it settling deep inside him. He wasn't going to get out of this. Not this time. He thought of his wife. His daughter. The lives he had destroyed. He thought of the blood on his hands, the blood he could never wash away. All right, Sam said, his voice a whisper. He looked at Lydia, his eyes hard but full of something else now, something that had been buried for far too long. I'll carry it. I'll carry it for as long as I have to. But I won't run anymore. Lydia nodded, her expression unreadable. Good. That's all I need from you. She turned to leave, her footsteps fading into the hall, but Sam didn't move. He stood there for a long time, feeling the weight of the past settle into his chest like a stone. It wasn't over. Not yet. But maybe, just maybe, he could start to carry it. He wasn't running anymore. And for the first time, he felt like he had begun to pay the price. Sam didn't know how long he stood there, staring at the door Lydia had walked through. His breath was ragged, his body heavy with exhaustion he couldn't quite explain. Maybe it was the weight of his own guilt pressing on him, or maybe it was the realization that there was no escaping what Lydia had said. No way out. He wasn't running anymore. He walked to the window, looking out at the land he had tried to own, tried to control. The moon hung low in the sky, casting silver light over the fields. It looked peaceful. Almost serene. But Sam knew better. He knew the cost of peace in a place like this. The silence in the house was oppressive, the kind that fills the air with ghosts. The air felt colder now, the weight of Lydia's words still echoing in his mind. She had been right. He couldn't undo the past, couldn't fix what was broken. He couldn't change the blood on his hands. But he had made a choice. He wasn't going to run anymore. He wasn't going to hide from it. The night passed slowly, and Sam couldn't sleep. He kept thinking of Lydia. Her eyes, cold and unforgiving. He had never seen anything like it. But what scared him more was the part of her that was calm, the part that wasn't angry, just resigned. She had come to collect the price. She didn't need revenge. She just needed him to feel the weight of it, to understand that he could never escape what he had done. He hadn't asked for this. But he had to live with it. By morning, Sam knew he couldn't wait any longer. He had to find her. He couldn't just sit around and let things play out. He needed to do something, say something, make the air between them shift, even if just a little. He couldn't undo the damage, but maybe, just maybe, he could offer something that might start to feel like redemption. He left the house, the door creaking behind him, and walked out into the yard. The wind had picked up again, and the sky was heavy with dark clouds. The storm was coming back, just like it always did. Sam made his way through the field, past the worn-down fence posts, toward the woods beyond. He didn't know what he expected to find, but he knew it was where Lydia would be. The girl who had haunted his days since she stepped onto his doorstep. The girl whose bloodline held the weight of everything he had destroyed. It wasn't far, the way to the woods. But each step felt like 100. Each step felt like he was walking deeper into his own guilt, deeper into the past he had tried to outrun. He reached the trees and slowed, scanning the area. The forest was dense here, thick with shadows. But there, near an old stump, was Lydia. She was standing still, her back to him, staring into the distance. The wind rustled her hair, but she didn't move. She didn't turn. "Lydia," Sam called, his voice hoarse. "I've been looking for you." She didn't respond. "I know you don't want to hear it," Sam continued, stepping closer. "I know you don't want to forgive me. And I don't expect you to. But I need you to hear me, just this once." Lydia remained still, her hands clenched at her sides. Sam stopped a few feet behind her, his chest tight. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I've been sorry for a long time, but it's not enough. I know that. I can't change what I've done. But I want to live with it. I want to carry it, like you said. I want to do whatever it takes to make this right, even if it means carrying the burden for the rest of my life." Lydia finally turned. Her eyes were cold, but there was something different now. Not softer. But less sharp. Less hungry. She didn't speak, but her gaze said enough. "You think I want you to carry it?" she asked quietly, her voice almost too calm. "You think that's all this is?"